Hey everybody, I hope you're liking the Showgirl Tip of the Day podcast so far. We talk about show business, old friends, and new adventures. My next guest is someone that was very kind to me when I was just starting out in show business. Wide-eyed, new to it all. We worked together on a national tour of a chorus line, and she was just as nice as could be to me. She's warm, she's funny, she's beautiful, she's talented. This is Lauren Kosarin. She's been in 16 Broadway shows. I always wanted to be just like her. And you know what, everybody? I still do. I thought about you because my friend Liam was talking about the LGBTQ plus community, and he mentioned the Trevor Project. And then I remembered that you volunteered for them. Yeah. So that's why I thought of you. And then I was like, wait a minute, she could talk about so much, including the Trevor Project.
Yeah. Which I'm definitely passionate about the Trevor Project. Very passionate about.
So when we talked a couple weeks ago, you said that you were in a lot of shows, but a lot of your shows were flops.
Yeah. Yes. In fact, let me take a look here. Let's see. The first Broadway show I did was a flop. Second Broadway show I did was a flop. Then I got a couple of good ones. The third one was a hit. Fourth one was a hit. Fifth one was a national tour hit. Smile was a flop. Druid was a hit. That ran for a while. Sophisticated Ladies was a hit. Then two more flops. Late Night Comic was a flop. In Broadway Grand was a flop. And then they were all hits to the bitter end, which was great.
So I see 16 posters on that wall.
Yes, you do. 10 were Broadway and 6 were first national tours.
Amazing.
Crazy, right? Good time.
And when we met, we were on the first national tour of A Chorus Line together.
Yes, I had done the first national tour in 1982. And then you and I did a European tour in 1989. And then I did that tour with you. What was that? Was it 91-ish?
Yeah, 92, I believe.
91, 92. Yep. Yeah. Those are the 3 tours of a chorus line that I did.
And then I tell that story to everyone about the gunny sacks dress that I was wearing at an audition. First of all, I just want to say, Lauren, you are one of the nicest people in show business that I have ever met. The whole time I've been in the business, you have always been so sweet.
Thank you.
And so kind. And we were at this audition together, and I was wearing a Gunny Sacks dress, which coincidentally, they're back in style.
I think I noticed you because, you're such a beautiful woman. You're a sexy woman. And I remember, I couldn't tell you what show it was we were auditioning for, but I remember that there was a breakdown that they wanted like sexy girls for the show, whatever it was. It was definitely, so to me that meant, probably black stockings and a black pump and a tight mini dress, and just show your features, right? So you have all the features, like your body, your everything about you was hot. And you were in it was like you were auditioning for Laura Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie. Go to another audition like this, because at that point I had a lot of I had been around. I mean, I'm about 10 years older than you, I think, and I had been around the block. And I know that the first thing they do is they type you out before you even open your mouth to sing. They look at you and immediately they're either thinking, oh, please let her be good because she looks right for what we want, or or they're just like, oh, this is like not a woman in touch with her hotness,
But to the listeners, Lauren was very kind because she could have not said a word, but she said to me very kindly, don't wear that. She said, you have to be sexy. And then I looked at her, and I believe you were wearing this blue mini dress with a high pump. Exactly. And I believe you booked that show. I think it was All Night Strut or something. Was there a show called that?
Oh, that was Late Night Comic. That was probably Late Night Comic. Yes. I have a feeling, which was a flop. So you didn't miss anything. But
but I learned a good lesson.
Yeah, and they wanted hot. Yeah.
Amazing. And you were at the audition with me for Victor Victoria, which I made it down pretty far for that audition, and I was really psyched.
Yeah, you did, right?
Did you book?
I did. I remember being in a final lineup of the ones that they picked. And I think you were in that final lineup, and Roxanne Barlow, who ended up booking it. There were like maybe 6 of us or 7 of us in this final line. And I remember Tara Rubin, who was the casting director, going up to the producers and the director and saying, all right, this is the cream of the crop now, what you see on the stage. This is it. These are your final, like, make a pick from these here. And I did not book it.
I didn't either, but it was nice to get that far.
Yeah.
That was a good, that was a fun.
And believe me, you got to hold on to those moments, right? Of, okay, you didn't get it, but when you're getting that close that often, it's just a numbers game at that point. You just got to keep pressing on, like that's like the feedback that you never get. We don't get feedback a lot. Half the time we don't know why we didn't book something. Like, we think we did great. You feel that rapport, right, with the director, the choreography, whatever. They're smiling at you. That you can feel them rooting for you, and you come out of there going, oh, I got this, and then you don't get it, and it's like, what, but. And you may never find out why, but if you're getting that far, if you're getting down to that last group, after hours and hours, right, or days of callbacks, that's your feedback. That tells you keep going. Just, it'll happen eventually. Just keep doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you train? What was your early training? Because these are things I don't know about you.
Oh, okay. So for me, I had wanted to be a ballerina. So I trained at the School of American Ballet, which is the New York City Ballet's company, at Juilliard. I studied there for like 4 years, from ages like 12 to 16. And when I was 16, it became very apparent I was not going to make it as a ballerina. I really didn't have what it takes technique wise. I was a good dancer, but I wasn't good enough. And I had a ballet teacher that I also studied with in Westchester, where I grew up, on the days that I wasn't at Juilliard. And she had been with the Royal Ballet of Paris, or Paris Opera Ballet, something like that. And she'd come to New York when she was young, and she did ensemble and Broadway shows. Like, she was in the original company of My Fair Lady as a dancer, and she'd done a lot of those like musicals way back when. And she said, she had come, she loved me. She was like a mentor to me. And I had done this production of Godspell in high school in like 9th grade. And she heard me sing. And she said, you have a really good voice, and you need to transition out of ballet and into musical theater. And so she sent me to HB Studios in the city to study musical theater classes. And she sent me to some jazz. I had never taken anything but ballet, but she was like, you need to learn other forms of dance for musical theater. You need to learn jazz, tap, right? So I did not want to tap. I refused to take tap lessons, which was the biggest mistake I ever made. But I went to Ron Farella. I started studying jazz, and they used to make fun of me. They knew I was a little ballerina when I went in there, with my little, like, just dressed wrong for class and didn't know how to move my hips yet, and I started training throughout my high school. I grew up near the city, so I took the train in after school every day and go just from class to class to class, to jazz class. I was still taking ballet wherever, and musical theater classes, and just training really hard, so that in my senior year of high school, I wanted to start working right away. I didn't want to go to college, because I felt that for the last 4 years, the whole time I was in high school, I was training with really good people and places in the city every day. And I felt like I had honed my craft, and I wanted to start auditioning. And so my parents made a deal with me that I could graduate high school half a year early, like take all the courses I needed to take, be done in January, and I could use that time till the next fall to audition. And if I didn't get anything, then I would apply to college and go to college. So that was kind of the deal we made. And I booked the first thing I auditioned for, and it was not a Broadway show. It was an off-Broadway showcase at the Jason Park Royal of a Jerome Kern musical called Oh Boy, starring Judy Blazer, who, she was just starting out too, and choreographed by a guy named Danny Levins, who is in the movie The Turning Point. He plays this real bitchy choreographer to the star ballerina, and he was our choreographer. And he loved me because he was from the ballet world, and the audition was very balletic, and that was very easy for me. And at that point, I had been studying voice, so I could pretty much handle anything you threw at me, whether it was like, that belty thing or legit, soprano, like whatever they wanted. And Jerome Kern is very old fashioned, so it was more of a legit type, show. And that was the first show I did. And when that show ended, I just was really lucky, and immediately I went to my first Broadway audition. I thought I was going to get my equity card, but I didn't get it for some reason, from that off Broadway show. And the first show I auditioned for was a show called Happy New Year, and what it was based on an old black and white movie starring Katharine Hepburn, called Holiday. So it was that script, but it was all Cole Porter music, like a trunk show. So they just kind of pulled out all these Cole Porter songs to make them fit into the Holiday script. And John McMartin was the narrator of it. And Lara Teeter and I opened the show with this incredible ballroom dance number. And this was a show that I had to tap dance to get into. And I had no tap training at all. And I bombed at that part of the audition. I did great at the rest of it. And because they were looking for, this used to happen all the time with Broadway shows, they would always hire one or two non-equity performers.
Oh.
It was cheaper for them, to pay us and all that stuff. But at the end of it, you could get your equity card.
Okay.
So they were having an equity and a non-equity open call. And I went to the non-equity open call. And I was the girl they hired from that call, from the non-equity call. And they kind of taught me how to tap dance. I just trained during my lunch hours and went to classes after rehearsals. And because they wanted someone to understudy the lead role who could sing it. And the show was such a heavy dance show for the ensemble, none of the girls could really handle the singing. So I was a natural choice to be the girl in the ensemble who was understudying the female leading role, which is how I got it. It was really my voice that got me into that show, and not my dancing as much as my singing. But it made me realize I need to get stronger at tap, for sure. And that's a hard thing to start learning when you're older,
Yes, it is.
Yeah, which is why I was really kicking myself that I didn't start when I was 14. Like my ballet teacher wanted me to start, with tap, and I didn't want to. And so, and I ended up, I couldn't make it through the Crazy for You call. And I remember Susan Stroman coming up to me and going, "You are such a triple threat, but you've got to learn how to tap. Like, I can't hire you." And I was like, okay. And then I did. I started taking private lessons with my friends. So by the time I was able to audition for Sophisticated Ladies, I had enough experience, I thought, now to book that show. And I did go to the audition, and I thought I did great. And the choreographer came up to me afterwards and said, "You're not a tapper, are you? Like, have you had tap training?" And I was devastated, because I thought, it was a really hard skill for me to master. And I said, I have very little tap training, but I know I can master this. And I was friends with a lot of the people who had done the Broadway show already. And they had all offered to teach me privately every night if I needed to. And I said, I will work on this with you on our lunch break, and I'll, learn as much as I can. I'd actually learned the audition tap before I went to the audition. I called my friends who had done the show and learned the choreography. So I thought I'd done great, but she could just see I did not have that technique. I just really didn't have that strong technique, but they hired me anyway. And I became a much stronger tap dancer doing that show. But I'm telling you, I was very lucky to be extended that generosity of spirit by the choreographer. A lot of what saved me over and over again, and I can name 3 or 4 shows where I did not have the strong enough tap ability, but I could handle all the other dancing brilliantly in the show, and I sang better than anyone else in the ensemble. And that was what always, they were like, "Well, we'll have you understudy the Terry Klausner role." They hit me with a hot note song. because the other girls couldn't do that. But, it was the bane of my existence that I had. And so I think for all the kids now who are like not able to audition yet, while Broadway's kind of on hold, it's like, use this time to just hone whatever your weakest skill is. Because you just never know what that one little thing is going to keep you from getting a job you're really perfect for, because they're not sure if you're going to be able to like master that particular thing, whether it's your legit voice or your mix in your belt or your, whatever form of dance it is that's in that show, that was a big lesson I learned. So yeah. When I look back in hindsight and I think, what would I have done differently? It's like, as soon as I decided not to be a ballerina, I would have definitely thrown tap class into the mix with all the other forms of dance that I was trying to familiarize myself with.
Do you have a favorite show that you did?
I think Chorus Line's got to be my favorite show. I mean, I think it's one of the greatest shows ever written. And I think when we were lucky enough to be doing it, it was like, that was the rock star of shows. Like that was the one, I think that was the one everybody aspired to be in, because you got to be the triple threat that you were. You got to act, you got to dance, you got to sing, you got to have your solo moment, and you also got to be part of an ensemble, which I love. I love the ensemble stuff. I love it. My favorite thing is to be in a show where it's not all me, but where you get to have your couple of moments to shine and show off. But then you get to be part of this, like, I don't know, singing with a lot of people for me is just a high like nothing else. There's just something about blending with all of those voices, and this idea that from the beginning of time, people have come together to storytell through plays and songs and dance. And it's like this ancient form of artistic expression and storytelling. And I remember when I was doing Beauty and the Beast, every night when we would do our company bow, and we were in these like old fashioned, period piece costumes, and we were singing the finale and taking our bows. Every night it would strike me as like, this is so amazing to be part of this group of people doing this, entertaining an audience like this. So Chorus Line for that reason, but like, just, I don't know. I think Joseph's Dreamcoat was one of my favorite shows, because at the time Andrew Lloyd Webber was a big deal and I'd never worked with him. And so that just felt very validating to get hired for a show that he, was hiring for. And I loved all the boys in the show, all the men in the show. It was like, I never had brothers, and it was like, suddenly I had all these brothers.
That's wonderful.
All these wonderful guys. And I adored them all. And it was just like going to camp every day to go do that show. It was a short show. The whole show was like an hour and a half long. You were out by 9:30 and you could go out to dinner and everybody could hang out. And it was just, I think because we started that show off Broadway as a little nothing at the Intermediate Theater in the East Village. And we didn't expect really anything to come of it. And the next thing we knew, we were moving to the Royale Theater on Broadway. And the next thing we knew, we were performing on the Tony Awards. And it was just like, just one joyful thing after the next with that show. It was just fun. So, I mean, I have a very special place in my heart, I think, for that particular production. But they all, even the flops, especially Smile. Smile was the first show I ever did. That was Howard Ashman, who wrote, Little Shop of Horrors and Little Mermaid and Marvin Hamlish, who I had done several shows with. And that was the first principal white contract role I had ever originated for a Broadway show. So that was
your original cast for that. That's amazing.
Cast, principal contract. And that was, having done a lot of like ensemble work or featured ensemble or like understudying the lead to finally create something in a workshop situation that then got, written in and really bring something of myself to it. That was very, very exciting. And very devastating that it only ran for a couple of months. It was a long gig. It was a year of workshop to going on tour with it, to hone it and fix it and shape it and then bring it into New York. And people were fired and rehired. And there was a lot of drama behind the scenes. but it was a great experience. It was just being part of that creative thing from the very beginning and getting it to a Broadway thing and doing like segments for 60 minutes and 20. It was a great year of my life, and very devastating when it closed.
It never has been reproduced, has it?
They do it in a lot of regional theaters. They do it at a lot of musical theater camps, and they do it in a lot of colleges. Yeah. And actually a few years ago, a guy named Richard Beaver wanted to bring it back. And so we did a concert version of it at 54 Below.
Nice.
And it was the whole original cast. I mean, Jodie Benson came in, Anne-Marie Bobby, Tia Riebling. It was everybody came in. And we just stood on stage and basically sang through the show. And there were all of these like fans, like with posters, who knew. It was crazy. It had such a cult following because it had been a cult movie. It was a B comedy, black comedy cult film that was like so bad it was good, and then that's why, they turned it into musical. So Richard kind of wanted to revive it, but it's not relevant anymore in this time. It wouldn't hold up anymore. It really wouldn't make sense to do it. But it's great to do in like schools and camps and stuff, and it definitely happens.
And what was the last show that you did before? Did you have your daughter and then continue to perform, or did you make the change?
Yes. I had been in the Broadway company of Kiss of the Spider Woman, and then I went on tour with it. With Cheetah was out on tour. I closed the show in New York with Ria Conchita Alonso, and I was her standby. I was a standby for both the lead women on that.
Wow.
For Marta and for the Spider Woman. And then when the show closed, Cheetah Rivera was on the road doing the first national tour. And Janine Lamanna was playing Marta, and she left, and I took over for Janine. Now Janine and I both, we played Marta. We were Marta in the show, and we were Cheetah's cover. So if Cheetah was out, we went on for her, and we had an understudy who went into the Marta spot. And that's how that worked. So I was out on the road with that, and my husband was pressing me to have a baby. And I talked to Cheetah a lot about that. It was like, I'm terrified. And she was like, if I can do it, you can do it. Just go get it over with, do it, and you get back to this. So I said, okay. I left, the tour, we closed, and I came home, and my brother-in-law, Michael Kosarin, was musical directing Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. And I called Michael and I was like, listen, if anything opens up that I can audition for, I want to stay home now and have a kid and, settle down and not be touring so much anymore. And he was like, something just opened. Something's open. One of the Silly Girls is open. Come in. He's like, you don't have to sing for it, because he knew my voice. He said, just dance and read for Babette, because that's the cover you'll have to do. And, it's the Silly Girl slot with the Babette cover. I said, no problem. I went in and booked the show and decided to make that my retirement job, where I knew I could get pregnant and take a maternity leave and go back into the show.
Very smart.
Right? So
very smart.
I knew it was going to run forever. So I was in the show for about 6 months, and then I got pregnant, and I stayed for another 3 or 4 months into the pregnancy. And then once the costumes were too tight and they couldn't let them out, and I couldn't get up from the jump splits anymore.
Oh, girl, doing those jump splits.
Almost doing a PK turn off the stage into the pit, because my balance was getting all wonky, at that point. I left and I took maternity leave, and and then I did come back. About a year later. It took about a year off, and then went back into it. And
when did you move to California?
So that was a crazy thing. When my daughter turned about 6, I don't know, was that like 2000? She was born in 97, 98, 2002-ish, 2003. I decided to retire from the show. And I mean, I just kept thinking it was going to close, but like all of a sudden my kid is 6 years old. I'm still doing this show, right? So I was like, gotta stop now. She was starting to have a life that she needed me around on the weekends, for her ballet recitals and karate classes and soccer practice, all that stuff. And so I quit. I had about a year after that, where my husband had gone to Florida to start a new company. And then we decided to move out there like a year later. So like, I don't know, I guess it was around 2004. We went to Florida, where we lived for 5 years. And it was a great time. He had a company that, that he was dealing with. He had retired from theater as well. And my daughter was basically training in ballet, again, to be ballerina, and also singing. And we figured she'd sort of go the Broadway route as well, because that was her passion. And then she had an opportunity to audition for a Nickelodeon, TV and film stuff. And anyway, that's what brought us out to LA, is that she ended up starring in a Nickelodeon show for many, many years. And so we came out to LA so she could do television.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And she's, she did that show. So then I became like a stage mom for the next, 5-6 years while she was doing that. And we had a little acting school out here too for kids to,
wonderful.
It's the business. Yeah. So I was doing coaching, coaching kids, coaching them. We still do a lot of coaching for kids that want musical theater, that want to go that route. I tend to feel more comfortable in that arena. My husband's really good at coaching kids onto Disney and Nickelodeon shows and stuff. We kind of know what that sells out. And, but our daughter's grown out. We've been out here for 10 years and she just signed a very big record deal with a very
fantastic.
She's on her way.
She's so
3 years she'll be in the Grammys for sure. But
she's so beautiful, and she reminds me of you. She also looks like your husband, and
she's a mix. She's a mix.
She's gorgeous.
She's amazing, but she's very, again, incredible work ethic, always training, always growing in all the fields, and just hard work. It's really, what is it? Is preparation, meeting, opportunity.
Oh yeah.
And then there's luck.
Absolutely luck. What are some things that you noticed from the time when you were growing up to when your daughter was growing up? What are some changes that you noticed in the industry?
It's so different now. First of all, it's the level of training and talent that these upcoming kids have. I mean, they're really exceptional. And I guess it's like you saw that, and if you watch the Olympics 50 years ago, a woman did a cartwheel, that was a big deal, right? And now you see what they're doing. It's the same thing. The range, the singing range that all of these females have now is mind-boggling. Their mix is incredible. Their belt, that really crazy high belt. In my day, if you could belt a C above middle C, that was good. Now it's E, F, G. It's like all this crazy high belt stuff that no one asked you to do back then. So that's major. And this expectation that, even when I was starting out, there was still that semblance of a dancer part of the ensemble and a singer part of the ensemble. And now it's no, you got to do it all equally well. I mean, if you watch the ensemble dancers in Hamilton, they're all covering the leads. They're all that good. So that's definitely changed. That the game is upped a lot. And the expectation for that expertise, that professionalism is really intense. I've noticed that. And also just the way auditions are held now, it's so interesting. It's going to be more of this since the pandemic, is that, going into the room is rare. I mean, everything, especially in Hollywood out here, everything is on tape now. You rarely get in the room. You don't get in the room until you've submitted the audition tape, maybe submitted another audition tape, then had maybe a director's meeting online, and then maybe you get together. It's hard to and for me, I'm a very in the room person. It's about personality and it's about energy, and that's such a hard thing to do. On camera is a different animal. It's a different, being real, being subtle, but having that energy. That's a lot for me. That's hard for me. I find that difficult. So
I was very resistant at the beginning of the self-tapes before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But then one time I got a self-tape audition, and the only time I could get it together and submit it was on a Sunday morning, and everybody else in my house was sleeping, and I had a few hours to myself to do it. Then my attitude changed, because I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to schlep into New York City right now.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I'm home. Yeah. I could do as many takes as I want.
That's the good part about it, is you can get it perfect. You can get it perfect. But I think, when it's on tape, they can also watch it over and over and over again. When you're doing it live, even if you aren't as perfect as you could make yourself on the tape, it's all part of a flow. It's not something you rewind and watch over and over again, So listen, if you can master the art of the self-tape, that is a huge part of it, because really it's, there are people that audition really well and then they can't deliver when they get the job. And there are people that just do terrible auditions, but they're phenomenal performers, and So mastering the two, getting that like just learning how to audition, that is an art in itself. That is as important now, more important, I think, than it used to be, the art of the audition. I think you could have, in my years ago, you could get away with maybe not as great an audition. And there was a little more leeway, a little more room for them going, well, sing something else for, you know what? Okay, what else do you have? You want to do something? Or you could even say, you know what? I'm sensing that wasn't exactly what you guys wanted. Do you want something more upbeat? Do you want something more legit? Like, you know what I mean? And in asking those questions, you're also showing your personality. And like, if I was going in for a role that was like a comic, like a kooky role or quirky, I could show that quirkiness in just my own verbiage and how I was relating to them behind the desk. And you could charm people and you could charm them.
Right.
Giving you a second chance. It's like with the tap thing. When that choreographer said to me, I don't think you tap well enough to be in Sophisticated Ladies, I literally got down on my hands and knees and like play acted begging her, and that show was going to be going to Russia. And I remember saying, you don't understand. You have to hire me for this. I'm Russian. This is like my heritage. Like, these are my people. Like, and I could joke around. And I think half the time it was just being like silly that got me a second chance at something that I might not have gotten another opportunity to show off what I could do.
Right. Do you have any aspirations to perform again, or are you done?
I was definitely done for a while and really had absolutely no desire to go back to it. I think because my husband was a musical director and a conductor and is a pianist, we do a lot of singing at home and we do a lot of coaching. And when we're coaching other singers, they always want to do a duet. They'll be like, do you know anything from Sideshow? And I'm like, sure. You want to sing it with me? Or you want to do something from Chess? Do you know this or that? And we'll sing together. And they're always like, oh my God, you're amazing. And that's fun for me. And that sort of gives me that high. I don't feel like I need to go do 8 shows a week ever again. And also, I think I shared with you the last time we spoke that I can barely walk in heels anymore. The idea of having to put on character shoes and dance is like, no, that's never going to happen again. That's never going to happen again. So, I mean, no, I don't, I got into the Trevor Project because like, if I hadn't been a performer, I think my second passion would have been to become some kind of like a therapist.
Yes.
And so that was like something I never pursued or looked at because I loved the performing. It filled me up the whole time I did it. And then I was busy, with my daughter's career after that and coaching. And then volunteering at Trevor Project as a crisis counselor just really filled me up and gave
How did that come about? How did you find out about the Trevor Project?
It's so crazy. There were so many homeless kids out here in LA. I was constantly running into them. Like when I go grocery shopping, there'd be like young, attractive, homeless kids. And finally, I went up to one of them and just went, what's going on with you? Like, where are your parents? And I was hearing several times these same story of, well, I came out or they found out I was gay and they kicked me out. So I'm from wherever and I came to California and, I didn't know what to say or do. You give them some money, but then it was like, there's got to be, I thought, maybe I can make up like a laminated bus card or with some money in it with the LGBT center on it. And I could just hand out these cards and say, well, if you need shelter or clothes, go to the LGBT center, youth center. And I just wasn't sure what to do. And I thought, well, that was an idea I had. So I went online to look up like, where is the LGBT center? And just started researching it. And the Trevor Project popped up on my computer. And I was like, what is this? And I went to their website and there was a volunteer thing. And I just clicked on that. And they were having that night, it was a Tuesday, I remember thinking, oh, this is so weird. That night they were having an online orientation to possibly be a volunteer. And the whole thing was about LGBTQ plus youth in crisis and how to help them with a suicide crisis hotline. And I just thought, okay, this sounds really interesting. So I did the online orientation and I was really interested after that. And it was like, how do I apply for this? And at that time, pre-COVID, there were only 2 call centers in the country that serviced the entire country. One was in Manhattan and one was in West Hollywood. And I was like, okay, I can get to the West Hollywood call center. So I filled out the paperwork and they were starting a training class like right away, but I had sort of missed the cutoff. But they said, you know what, call in and do a phone interview and maybe we can get you into that class. And so I did the phone interview, and after the phone interview, there was an in-person interview. And after the in-person interview, they decide whether you can take the class. And they got me in right away, which was wonderful. And I did the training, and it was like 80 hours or something of classes, like, and then it was phenomenal training, really phenomenal training. And then you could start on the crisis suicide hotline. So I did. And just from the very first day I did it, I was like, I'm great. I love this. Like, I'm very comfortable doing this, and it was just one of the most, I got into it to validate, youth in crisis, to validate people who are feeling suicidal, rejected, in the community. And I always came out of every time I did a shift, I came off, they were the ones validating me, it was incredible. Just, the gratefulness, the thing, like from the callers, just to be able to process what they were going through, and just to kind of be talked off that ledge, when it was happening, de-escalated, just made me feel like this is what I'm meant to be doing. It was very fulfilling. And so doing that, I never missed theater. I didn't miss it for a second. Since the pandemic, because I did get COVID myself, and it took me about 4 months to recover from it. I took a sabbatical, and I have not yet gone back to it. And I'm starting to now miss it. Like thinking, okay, only it's going to be very different now. It's a little intimidating for me, because now they had to close the call center, but we can get the headsets and all the stuff we need and do it from home. The scary part for me is that, the majority of calls are not people killing themselves. They're people who, it could be any kind of problems that you're having. A breakup, you've got a test coming up that you're anxious about in school. I mean, people call for all reasons. And most of the time it's not that, at a level 10. When it is at a level 10, when it's what, you could call an imminent risk, where you may have to send someone to someone's home, to get them to the hospital, or to intercede, an act, a suicidal kind of act. At the time I was at the call center, I had my co-counselors around me, and I'm able to ask for help, because, you're on the phone, you want to stay connected to that person, while somebody else is maybe, trying to find out what their address is, or, who else we need to call for an intervention of some kind. And that just makes me a little nervous to do from my home, but eventually I'll get there, it just
right, you need extra support.
You do. And you get that, and believe me, there is that. Like, when you're on a call from your home, there is a crisis service manager, there are other counselors online. It's just that I will have to communicate with them online only, and I'm not the most technically proficient person I hate technology, and it was always I just felt much calmer having the actual people, in my face. But regardless of that, it's an incredible organization. I mean, it's just, the counselors are amazing. They really are amazing. It really is like a safe, private space that anyone can go to and, find support.
And I'm going to leave the number for the Trevor Project in the show notes.
Yes. I can give it to you right now. It's 1-866-488-7386. That's the hotline that you can call to speak with someone. And it's 24/7, 365 days a year. And then if you're in a situation where you're not comfortable, or you're saying, a lot of people are closeted. They have not come out to their families yet, but they want to talk about it. And so there's Trevor Text, which is really great. Text and chat. Which is a lot of people prefer to communicate. And what you would do is you would text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 678-678. And then you can, but no matter what you're looking for, you can always go online and Google the Trevor Project, and like everything is there. All the information of for counselors and stuff is on the website. And there's trevor.org, which is phenomenal. That's an online community, a completely safe, private online community where, you can find folks who are going through exactly what you're going through. And you could connect digitally all over the country with LGBT plus community.
I love it. All of this happened because you notice people. A lot of people just choose to walk by, not make it part of their lives, but you took another step and you signed up for the...
I did. And it always was in me. I've been the facilitator in my own family with my own relations, queerness. There are a lot of queer people in my family. My sister, my nephews and nieces, and all of them needed help navigating coming out to the rest of the family. And I was always that person. And maybe because, that's my community. That's your community. I mean, when you're in the Broadway community for 25 years, you have all your friends are LGBTQ+. It's just not, there's nothing not normal about that to me. There's
right.
That and so
it's your friends,
these people, and I had heard these stories from my gay friends my whole life of being excommunicated from their families, being discriminated against. I was deep in the community in theater during the whole AIDS crisis. I lost more friends than I can even count to AIDS. I nursed friends who had AIDS. That's my world. It was just my norm. And so the idea that it's still a thing just blows my mind, that it's still something people are discriminated against for is just, it weighs heavily on me. And so it just was a really easy, natural transition for me to, now be talking to someone that could have been my niece or nephew on the street and just be like, this is not okay. There's got to be something I can do to support the community, in a meaningful way. When we did Broadway, we could do equity fights AIDS. We got to do that stuff.
What do you have to say to the listener who might want to do something? What do you suggest if someone wants to help? What do you suggest someone begin with?
If they want to help, volunteer at the Trevor Project?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's easy. If you just go online like I did and hit volunteer, all the information you need, and you can call the offices and they will direct you in how to train for this. And now that you can do it from home, that makes it so much easier because you can do it from anywhere in the country now. You don't have to be based in Manhattan or LA to do this kind of work. You can do it from anywhere, which is a wonderful thing. And we really do need more volunteers than ever because, with the pandemic, for a lot of kids, I had repeat callers over 4 years that I always knew it was them from age 15 up to they've started college, and I remember just trying to get them through each year, especially if they were from very ultra hyper religious families that would have kicked them out, you really talk to your callers and you make sure, is it safe for them to come out? Is it not safe? If it's not safe, if I determine it's not safe, I'm not going to encourage anybody to come out when they could end up homeless, then it's what can we do? What kind of coping mechanisms can we give you so you can get to college, so you can get to, and not just a college that your parents pick, but a college where you can find some community and support. And so for a lot of these kids, once they get to college, it's an incredible thing for them because now they can find there's, a gay straight alliance, there's an LGBT group, there's counselors, and they can become their authentic selves with support. But because of COVID, a lot of the schools are making them homeschool. The colleges are making them. And so they have to go back to a house where their parents don't use their correct pronoun. You know what I mean? Where they're just, they can't get away from it. They're just trapped for God knows however much long. So that's causing a lot of depression, as you can imagine.
Yes, I can.
A lot more than usual. And there isn't that light at the end of the tunnel of, well, look, you might have to go home for the holidays and that's going to suck, but then you get to go back to school, and once you graduate school, you get some roommates, you move out, you find your own way, those options aren't really there right now for people. So it's a very desperate time and definitely need more volunteers.
Thank you. What a journey, Lauren. I've always admired you. I've always looked up to you and respected you. But, as time goes by, you're just the richness of your life and you're just such a good woman.
Oh, you're going to make me cry, Jill.
What would you say has been the most fun out of all of this life that you have lived? What is just one little fun thing you want to share with the listeners?
Oh my gosh, there's so many fun things. Honestly, the funnest thing, the friends that I made through theater, who are still my best friends, and all the fun I've had with them, the get-togethers. That is the fun. That is the fun of my life. But professionally, the most fun thing I'm going to say is when my daughter asked me to do a guest spot on her TV show.
And I love that episode. You were so adorable on it.
I was literally just a mail lady, like delivering the mail, like with 2 lines or something. But that day of filming and the response to it all, and the whole idea that, oh my God, I'm like doing a guest spot on my kids' show. Like, it was crazy to me. That it was just crazy. It was just like, I in a million years would not have thought that would ever be happening. You know, that I would have a moment like that. That we would just even be in that place in all our lives, that would happen. And that was just so much fun. That was just so much fun. Yeah. So
I love it.
You know, life is fun. I mean, life is fun, you know, pool parties are fun. And I always tell people, honestly, booking the jobs for me was more fun than doing the jobs.
Oh, same.
Really?
The telephone call. Like, yes! We would like to offer you. That to me was
the biggest high in the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is more fun to me. That was just those days. And I remember every single one of them, you know, just that, like, you're floating on a cloud. You're just floating on, and you can't wait to call your mom, you know, and tell your parents and whatnot. Like, that was fun.
Is there any nugget that you want to leave us with, like, to the aspiring actor, singer, dancer, someone who just wants to be a part of show business? What advice would you give someone who's just starting out?
Yeah. Oh boy. That's such a double-edged sword. I think no matter what, you got to follow your passion. You never ever want to leave this planet or this life saying, I wish I had tried, you know. Don't be afraid to fail. Just don't, you know, if you love it and you want it, go for it. It may not happen. You know, it's a hard career. I'm not going to lie. It's a very small, you know, show business is a small group. And we all know each other because once you're in it, you know, you're in it, but it's not easy. It's wonderful. I would not have traded it for anything in the world. I feel very grateful and fortunate I got to do it. So, you know, you train hard. You kind of have to be realistic and not realistic at the same time. You know, you have to, that's the advice. Just balance, you know your limitations, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at. Try to get better at the things you're not good at, and know it's a hard road to haul, but that you have to follow your passion, right? What's the point?
Yeah.
Don't try to go after, you know, try. And really, honestly, as far as something that's important, get good training. Don't go to Dolly Dinkins Dance Studio. Like, even if you have to commute, do the commute, train with the right people. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. You know,
good advice.
It drives me nuts. We get so many people who have come, I've been studying voice for 6 years. And I'm like, yes, and you've been studying it wrong. And now we have to undo all of these bad habits and start from scratch. So, like, don't waste your time and money on mediocre teachers. Find the best teachers you can find. That would be my most important piece of advice, I'd say. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Have you. They got the best. All right, sweetheart. Well, this is great.
Lauren, thank you so much for your time today. You are just an angel. Where can people find you? Are you on social media?
I mean, I have an Instagram account, but, you know, which you're welcome to go follow me. I mean, I haven't posted on it in a long time. It's just Lauren Kosarin, my name. And it's mostly pictures of me and Kira together.
Okay.
You know, post stuff about her. But I mean, I'm pretty low key. I don't really, you know, but.
Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you to Lauren Kosarin for joining me on the Showgirl Tip of the Day podcast. Next week, we have British actress Samantha Stevens. If you are liking this podcast, please give it a review on iTunes. That would help a showgirl out a lot. The Showgirl Tip of the Day podcast has original music composed by Joshua Holloway. Find him on YouTube, Joshua Holloway Music. This podcast is written by Michelle Bruckner and edited by Michelle Bruckner and Joshua Holloway. Find me on Instagram, Showgirl Tip of Day. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week with a new episode.